Welcome to Heal with Gracen. Today we're going to talk about what it's like starting adulthood as a black sheep. So, for those of you who also grew up in a severely psychological dysfunctional family system, you and me both know what it's like to have zero healthy role models, zero healthy comparative figures to assess and analyze what is quote unquote appropriate in the real world and what isn't. Okay, everything gets distorted. The way you experience and perceive relationships get distorted. The way you perceive other souls becomes distorted. So, I really wanted to talk today about what it's like to actually start that next level, that next chapter, that next phase of your life as a healthy adult when nobody else in your bloodline has been healthy for so long. I want to begin this conversation of who am I and what the heck am I here to do? Growing up in a severely dysfunctional, narcissistic cult family system, unfortunately in childhood, what we end up doing to survive is forming this, what I call like a fake self. It's a survival self. We create all of these different masks, even go as far as personality. We get psychologically and emotionally stunted in time, especially depending on the kind of abuse and the severity of the abuse that we experience. And so what ends up happening is we naturally disconnect from our true authentic self, right? So because if we were our true authentic selves, one, it wouldn't be 100% supported by the family system. You are automatically rejected. You are automatically ostracized. Your physical needs get severely threatened. And so what you end up doing is you respond to that low vibrational, chaotic, dysfunctional environment and people by quote unquote people pleasing, by surviving. Okay, so you create these different personas. You attach yourself to these different identities. Your ego, as a defense mechanism, will create different stories as a way to keep your soul safe and continuing in this incarnation. So, once you, as an adult, make the choice of saying, screw this, I'm no longer going to be a part of this family system. I am not going to repeat this generational trauma. I'm not going to repeat the same old ways of being that have been repeated for so long. I'm going to choose to jump into the unknown, whether I feel that fear or not, okay? Because that is just, I feel like that is a natural, organic outcome emotionally of jumping into the unknown. And especially growing up in a chaotic environment in our crazy households, we get psychologically wounded from the fear of the unknown, right? Because when you were a child and there was so much drama and so much arguing and fighting and slamming doors and slamming pots and breaking dishes and just all kinds of violence going on in your household, you naturally get wounded energetically in your psyche and your psychological channels, and this ends up replaying out in your adult life of trauma bonding and future relationships where you naturally energetically attract a partner who also has that same wounding of the fear of unknown. And this fear of unknown wounding comes from an unstable environment. And so what ends up happening is you are afraid to, one, make hard choices. You're afraid to believe in yourself. You're afraid to take a chance on yourself. You're afraid of experimenting as an adult. You're afraid of just getting yourself out there and living your life, right? Like you're deeply, deeply afraid of that. Because in childhood, when you did just jump into the unknown, it was so erratic, it was so chaotic, it was so unpredictable in the unsafest way. And so naturally what you do is you're like, whoa, I'm going to put myself in a safe container, in a safe space where I'm not going to exit this box that I put myself in because I feel safe in this box. I feel safe in this familiar box, and this is where I'm going to sit forever. No. We're not going to do that, okay? So don't be afraid to open yourself up out of that box, jump out into the world, start experimenting with the fear of unknown. Get used to and get comfortable with the discomfort that comes with life, okay? Get used to disagreeing with others and them disagreeing with you. Get used to navigating emotionally with other people. I had such this profound experience at my restaurant job where um, my boss showed me and taught me that it is safe to express your emotions no matter how intense they are in the moment and with whoever it is that you're having an issue with. And when I was in childhood, that was an absolute no-go. If I were to do that, I would have probably been put out on the street. I would have been homeless. Like, I would have had no support system, no family system whatsoever, because they always shoved things under the rug. They denied it. They gaslit. They pretended like it didn't even exist. They pretended like it didn't even happen, right? Like, it was like constant walking on eggshells. And I feel like that also reflects as a collective in our society at this time of all of us are literally co-creating a narcissistic society by all of us walking on eggshells around each other, by worrying about who we're going to trigger, worrying about what we're going to say and how that affects others, in the sense of, if you're coming from a unconditionally loving space with pure intentions and you are speaking truth frequency, there is nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. Nothing wrong. Now, if you are approaching somebody or approaching social media and, you are refusing to take responsibility for the negative intentions that you're speaking out there, and then, you get crazy backlash and you get all these people swarming you with their hate comments, right? Like, you're getting all of your negative intention energy mirrored back to you. Well, that's a whole different story, right? Like, it's one thing to speak your truth and speak from a place of authenticity and experience, and with the intention of educating and inspiring. And it's another to speak from a place of wanting to start drama, of wanting to replicate what has been going on in your own family system for so many generations. Okay, and so with all of that being said, super long side tangent, this brings me to the question of who am I? Who am I without being and participating in this family cult system? Who am I? Who am I without all of these attachments? Who am I without this survival identity, this survival self that I created? I totally freaking forgot who I was. Like, it's been so long since I reconnected with that unconditioned aspect of myself within, right? Like, I don't know what lights me up. I don't know what makes me feel alive. I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm here to do. I feel directionless. I feel like I have a lack of purpose. I feel like I lack fulfillment. Okay? This is an organic result of breaking out and exiting that cult family system. This is an organic outcome of being a curse breaker, of being a cycle breaker. You are literally here to pave the way forward for other souls to be like, hey, this over here is severely dysfunctional. This is highly toxic. This is not serving our planet anymore. This is not serving society. This is not serving our community. This is not going to lead to something better in the world. This is only going to continue to make it worse, right? Like, just think about that for a second. Think about what your life would be like, how your future progeny would be, how schools are going to be, how governments are going to be, how cultures are going to be if we keep continuing to co-create narcissistic societies and families, okay? How crazy and scary is that? I mean, just let the gravity of that reality just sink in your mind for a second, okay? And then what I want you to do is ask yourself, okay, you know what? I'm just going to literally release and drop everything I have ever known. I'm going to let go and surrender into this void, because that's literally what you have to do. You have to give yourself permission and feel safe to let go and surrender and know deep at the deepest levels of yourself, at the deepest core of yourself, you are always innately supported by the universe. You are always innately supported by yourself, okay? Always, 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 always at the deepest levels. So physically, it may not seem that way, right? Like, if you're in a shitty living situation, if you have a terrible job situation, whatever physical aspect of your life that is playing out that sucks, right? Like in the moment it sucks, but at the highest level it's like all really working out for you always. Like no matter what is going on physically, energetically, non-physically, like you have your own back always. And that is so huge. And I feel like nobody ever talks about that. That isn't spoken about enough. And the best way I can teach you how to reconnect with who you are is by letting go everything you have ever known and deciding to wipe your slate clean, okay? Question everything, question all of your current beliefs, question your likes and your dislikes, right? Like for example, if you deeply value watching entertainment, right? Like you love to watch TV, you love to go to the movies, ask yourself, do I like this kind of movie because my parents did? Or do I genuinely like this because it genuinely lights me up? This lights up my inner child. This reminds me of like a positive aspect from childhood. Do I genuinely like to go out and get drunk because that's fun for me? Or am I just repeating generational trauma because my grandmother was like a raging alcoholic, right? Like you have to ask yourself and really just reflect all of the time. And that is going to help you slowly unpack all of that programming, years of brainwashing, years of conditioning, years of stuff that isn't yours, right? Like, let it go. It's time to just let it go. And if this podcast has found you, it is time for you to let that shit go. Absolutely love that phrase. And so, yeah. Slowly but surely, you will start to remember and reconnect with who you are, and you will know who you are. You will know what is healthy and what is unhealthy. My best advice is the way I did this, energy healing on myself and self-help through books, whether it was Barnes & Noble, Amazon. I really wanted to read books that were going to challenge the way that I currently think and that were going to open my mind to new things and new perspectives. Okay? So that's what I highly recommend. How can you expand your consciousness as much as possible? How can you train yourself to understand and perceive new perspectives that are entirely different from yours and that totally contrast yours, and that you can find the lesson or the inspiration or the teaching moment in that connection or from that perspective? Another great thing that's coming to me are TED Talks. TED Talks are amazing. They always teach you something new, and I love them. But yeah, always take everything with a grain of salt. Anything you're listening to, reading, watching, right? Like you don't have to just absorb it and like say, okay, this is 100% my truth. Like really reconnect with yourself, reconnect with your heart, your inner child, your soul, like your sensitivity, okay? Like how deeply you feel and process things, like really feel it. If it's your truth, you will know if something's for you and when something's not for you. You'll know, like you will start to feel that contrast of what's not for you. It'll start upsetting your energy. Like for me, the way I know something is out of alignment with me or super low vibrational or toxic is it will start triggering my solar plexus. Like it'll make me nauseous. Like I'll feel like this like sick energy. Like it's like literally my body and my energy rejecting the low vibrational frequencies of like, ugh, like this is coming from a source with negative intentions. Like, no. And then on the flip side, when I am reading, watching, or listening to something and I get what I call crazy body chills, goosebumps, right? Like spiritual goosebumps. Or sometimes I'll feel like a deep resonance like in my heart. And I want to say it's like my feminine heart, but also like my main heart chakra. So with that being said, there is a lot of work in unpacking who you are not to remember and reconnect to who you are. So just know that that work is possible. And if you are looking for all kinds of energy healing videos on how to heal yourself, definitely check out my YouTube channel. I post free content up there all the time. I now post twice a month. So you can find me at the beginning of the month and at the end of the month. And I teach you guys something new every single time. Like you will learn how to heal your nervous system. how to heal so that you can have good luck. I mean, there's just so much. How you can release those false masks, right? Do work with Kali Ma. I literally have an abundance of information, of wisdom and knowledge. So feel free to go help yourself with that. You can find me on YouTube at Gracen Kahn 888. So, okay. Now, that leads me to the next question of what am I here to do? This question. I feel like I'm not battling this question anymore because I've learned to just totally surrender and let go. And I feel like this question is meant to be experienced. It's not necessarily meant to be fully known and fully realized. It's like you fully know it and realize it while you're going through the motions and the experiences of life. So, for example, for me, what am I here to do? I know for sure I am here to teach, to inspire, to guide, to mentor, and to be an author. How that shows up and plays out, I have no idea. I am just winging it. That is part of my Saturn and Aries placement, is I literally am meant to wing everything in my career, and that is how I get to experience and find out what exactly it is that I'm here to do. But right now, I'm just accepting my next step and these breadcrumbs that are being presented to me along the way. And so that is one thing I truly grappled with, because as a former scientist, I followed experiments and I knew the results, I knew the outcome, I knew what to expect. It was like, okay, I knew if I mix these two chemicals together, I was going to make this, or I knew what not to mix so that I wouldn't create something bad, right? Like, there was safety in that, there was security in that, and applying that to my life, it's like, I don't know what exactly that is that I'm here to do, and there's like not that guaranteed safety and security that my little self, my egoical self wants so fucking bad. But it's like soul Gracen knows that security and safety is innate. It's already there. It's always here. It will always be here. It's just a matter of trusting that process, living my life, being okay with making mistakes, and just living so organically and so authentically. And that's what I'm here to do. It's like I'm here to do that and do also what lights me up and what makes me feel alive. And I would say at this point in 2024, almost towards the end of 2024, that I have actually come to terms with just releasing all expectation and attachment to what it is that I'm here to do. And I'm just going to go with the flow. And I'm going to surrender to that flow of the universe and that flow of life. And instead of fighting it, instead of resisting and trying to control the outside external forces, I'm just going to surrender and float down the river. Like, I'm just going to sit in my little tube and just, follow the lazy river and keep it moving. I'm not going to keep swimming upstream anymore and holding on to the branches and resisting, right? Like, trying to create a different outcome. It's like, no, I really just need to let go and just surrender, and, whatever happens, happens. And it's going to serve the highest good of all involved. And that is literally how you just are going to start living your best life. That is like the best, deepest, most soulful, truest advice that I could possibly give to you guys. So, okay, moving forward, I want to talk about what it's like to the emotional and the psychological aftermath of exiting the narcissistic cult-like family system, or simply a dysfunctional family system, right? Like, one, a lot of the times you're going to feel alone, okay? You're going to feel alone physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, all the ways, right? Like, you're going to feel alone on the holidays, you're going to feel alone in day-to-day life, you're going to feel alone when something bad happens to you, right? Like, get a flat tire and your tire explodes on the interstate, you've literally nobody to rely on, nobody to call, because there's literally nobody there. It's like you literally have to become 100% self-reliant and learn to form newer and truer connections outside of you. I'm like seeing an orb right now in my healing room. So I'm talking about this example. Anyways, yeah, it's about forming those newer and truer connections with the people around you, the souls around you. Like, it's about relying on the abundance that's already there. Okay, so for example, with the tire explosion example, I was actually on my way to work one morning. This was, I think, in 2023, maybe? Yeah, I think it was 2023. Either 2023 or 2022, I can't remember. Anyways, I was driving to work, I was going to my restaurant job, and I had to open at like 6:30 in the morning, and it was cold. It was like, it just snowed like the night before. It was icy, and I was driving down the interstate like 70 miles an hour, and all of a sudden I heard a boom, like an explosion. And I was like, oh God, that was my tire. And at the time, like, even now, I don't know why my car doesn't tell me, like, when something goes wrong with my tire, like, the tire light just shows up. Like, it doesn't say, like, PSI 0, right? Like, it just, there's your little warning light. And I just knew, like, I automatically had to pull over because I started smelling burnt rubber. And I was freaking out because I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to be late for work. And I'm just somebody, like, I am just not a late person. I can't stand being late. And I think I get that from my dad because he was like a super punctual freak about everything. Like, he had to be on time everywhere, like no matter where it was, whether it was like a family event or if we went to the Jewish Orthodox temple, because that's where he went for his own obligations, right? Like wherever it was, like he just couldn't be late. And so like I think that got ingrained into me in childhood. I'm pretty sure it did. And so like now, like, you know, when I go to like a massage appointment or my facial appointment or work or wherever it is that I'm meeting somebody, I have to get there on time or early. Otherwise it drives me like batshit crazy. Which is so interesting. I wonder like what that looks like psychologically in my psyche and like where that's stored, where that programming is stored. But anyways, and so yeah, I was like freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be late for work. And like I had a really super low vibrational dysfunctional boss, and I remember calling her and I was like, hey, like my tire just exploded on the interstate, and I can't get a hold of my car insurance people. Like they haven't gotten back to me. Oh my god, it was such a nightmare. Like I was trying to use like my little USAA app and I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I couldn't even call anybody. Nobody was answering their phone. It was like the universe was like, you are supposed to be late to work today. Like stop resisting and just surrender. And she called me and she was like, where are you? Like, I'll come get you. And she was like, I need you here now. I need this restaurant open now. And I was just thinking like, seriously? Like, I could have almost died, and you're just over here worrying about opening the restaurant. Like, be so fucking for real. Anyway, so I wait outside my car. I'm like freezing, and my mom finally gets a hold of me like 30 minutes later. She finally wakes up, and she's like, well, let me see what I can do. So she's like, I just asked Archangel Michael to come follow you. And I was like, oh my God, Mom, like seriously? And so I want to say about like a couple minutes later it was, this state trooper like finally sees me like pulled over on the side of the interstate. I'm like off this exit. There's just 6 a.m. traffic. He pulls over and he's like, hey, like, is everything okay over here? And I'm like, no, my tire exploded. I need to get to work. Like, my boss is freaking out. She's like being a bitch about me getting there on time. Like, I literally almost died. And he's just like listening to me, like, like, oh my gosh, like, she's such a woman, like, Jesus. And anyway, he goes, get in the car, it's cold, like, turn your heater on, like, no worries, like, I'll fix your tire, just make sure you get back in the car, like, I want you safe. And I was just like, whoa, okay, all right. I'm like, this is weird. So he's like fixing my tire, and he like makes me roll down my window, and he's like, you're all good to go, like, don't drive too far, make sure you get it to, you know, a tire shop, get a new tire, blah blah blah. And one of the things that I found really interesting in that was one of my clients back in 2021 was a police officer. He was actually one of my first clients, and I remember so clearly and so vividly Archangel Michael showed up in his session. And I said to him at the end of our session, I said, do you have any kind of like dreams or any kind of non-physical experiences with Archangel Michael? Like, he was very like vivid and very clear, like here, like he was in this room with you, like his energy was just like massive, like it was just like this very like royal blue protective energy, very masculine energy. And he sits up on my healing table and he looks at me and he says, all police officers wear this badge, this Archangel Michael badge. And that's so interesting that you say that. It was such a cool experience. And so anyway, I totally forgot where I was going with this story. Oh yeah, feeling alone. So that is one of the natural, organic outcomes of breaking out of the family system, of becoming 100% self-reliant and forming newer and truer connections outside of yourself, okay? And also, it's like developing this like network, like this web of support, right? Like it really does take a village, and in order to make your life easier, in order to create a better and healthier society, like we all have to show up for each other. Like we all have to rely on each other and support each other in one way or another. And you can't just do everything by yourself. And that was one of the things that was super hard for me, was I literally got so used to doing everything by myself as much as I could, to the point of like, I'm going to do everything that I can until I can't, which is a trauma response. It's a trauma response of dealing with severely emotionally, psychologically, spiritually immature, mentally immature adults around you, like your entire life. When you are growing up in a family system of grandparents, aunts, uncles, parents, siblings, okay, that are just so immature, and you're over here like, why are they so immature? And like, why do I already know how to do everything? Like at the age of 7, at the age of 8, like why am I being relied on as the adult of the household? Like I'm supposed to be enjoying my childhood. I'm supposed to be receiving. I'm supposed to be observing. I'm not supposed to be thinking. I'm not supposed to be problem solving and dealing with adult problems at such a young age. I'm not supposed to be in the grocery store by myself, grocery shopping and paying for groceries up at the counter, right? Like I'm not supposed to be responsible for cooking the entire family food and doing laundry and cleaning the house and basically being a Cinderella. Like I'm not supposed to be doing that. And so unfortunately, when you decide to exit and make that choice, all of those family members, just be prepared. There's going to be some backlash. There's going to be some explosion. Okay? Like it's not going to go well. It's not going to end pretty. And that is part of the discomfort. I feel like that's the beginning of your discomfort journey of life, right? Like getting used to discomfort and uncomfortable change and all the things, which is, it's like they're seeing you as like their little buddy, and their little buddy that they got to take advantage of for so long, and they got to rely on you to do all the emotional labor and all the thinking for them and all the problem solving for them. They got so used to that their brains are literally like poo-poo brains. Like they just can't think. They don't know how to use their brain, right? They don't know how to use their brain. They don't know how to think. They don't know how to navigate through life. It's like they're like these old people with like 5-year-old brains. Like it's so crazy. And so when you make that conscious choice and you communicate, hey, this is what I'm going to do with my life, and I'm not going to tolerate this behavior anymore. And if you desire to have a true and authentic relationship with me, a real relationship with me, there has to be vulnerability that goes both ways. So in order for us to have a real relationship, there's going to be moments of discomfort. There's going to be moments of disagreements. There's going to be moments of challenge. There's also going to be good moments, and it's a matter of how we both choose to navigate through that discomfort. And if you're going to be a little bitch about it, if you're going to be immature and you're going to deny, deflect, and you're going to choose to stay stagnant, then we can no longer have a relationship moving forward, right? Like you can't have a real, genuine, true, authentic relationship moving forward if the other person is not willing to talk to you, communicate that discomfort, listen to your discomfort, and offer their perspective, listen to your perspective, and then find a compromise, right? Like there was a cycle that I like came up with in my brain. It was like relationship, conflict, communication, compromise, something. I don't know. It was like in my mind the other day. And I was reflecting and I was like, wow, like, in childhood, like you couldn't even go through that entire cycle. It wasn't safe. It wasn't safe to express your emotions. Like nobody could just freely like lash out or freely cry or freely do anything because you were literally shut down for it. Like you were threatened. You were threatened of like, hey, if you do that, I'm not going to feed you, or I'm not going to house you, and you're not going to be safe. Like I'm going to abuse you in multiple ways if you decide to say how you feel. And like I just so admire that, like in my boss. Like I was like, when I saw him like go through moments of discomfort with another employee, like if he lashed out or, right, like he went through an intense emotion, and then the other person went through an intense emotion, and then they like eventually worked through that conflict and then came to a compromise, and then they were fine. That was so brand new for me. Like I had never seen that before in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, like I am safe to do that. Like, it almost makes me want to cry, like, talking about it. I'm like, wow, like, I can actually be angry and it's okay. I can actually express my anger and it's okay. I can, I can express when I dislike something and that's okay and I'm safe to do that. Like, it was just so attractive for me. I was like, wow. Like, it was just life changing for me to see that. And, anyways, I'm getting super emotional. So, I'm gonna keep it moving. So, yeah, we just briefly talked about, oh, yeah, when you are feeling alone, naturally you're going to self isolate. I feel like you're going to start naturally feeling this inclination of isolating yourself. This can look like not talking to friends or having a social life for months. I definitely did this. I feel like I didn't do such a good job of navigating this, right? Like, here we go, that Saturn and Aries energy of like just winging life. I didn't know. I didn't know how to safely communicate and express my emotions and safely be like, hey, I just want to go off the radar for like 6 months and please don't take it personal, but I need to just be alone and read books and sleep and just focus on me, literally, and just be alone with my energy and my presence and get used to being alone with myself, right? Like, I was not good at communicating that. And so, as a natural outcome, a natural organic outcome of all that I ever knew to do, it was just ghost people. I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna stop talking to them because that's safe, that's familiar, that's all I know how to do, that's all I've ever known, like, what to do. That's all I've ever known how to deal with situations because that was like the safest thing that I could do, right? Like, so anyway, you're going to start getting used to self-isolating, and then you're going to start getting addicted to your own energy and your own natural frequency and that peace, that silence, that blissful energy of just being. It's like this very feminine energy. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female, we all have feminine and masculine energies within. And that feminine energy is that energy of letting go, surrendering, being, like, just being so present in the moment and just being so okay with like nothing, doing nothing, right? Masculine energy is all about doing, taking action, leading, protecting, providing, right? Like, it's all movement. Feminine energy moves in a different way, it moves in a different form. And so I just want you guys to think about that and think about, you know, where you would feel most comfortable to start your self-isolating journey. For me, I was self-isolating up in the mountains. I'd go to the beach when I lived back home. I would go, did I say Barnes & Noble already? I don't know if I said Barnes & Noble already. But yeah, I'd go there to the bookstore. I'd go to the park. I would just sit in my car, right? Like, I would just leave my house and just go sit in my car or go for a walk around my neighborhood and just like self-isolate that way, play some music and just be alone, right? Like, it's really important that you get used to being alone and being with yourself and start talking to yourself the way that you would talk to your own kid if you had one, right? Like, one of the things that I noticed that I was doing was if I got frustrated, I would like take that out on myself. I'd be like, seriously, Gracen, what are you freaking doing? Are you dumb or what? And I caught myself talking to myself like that. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, no, I'm going to be nice to myself. I was like, you know what, Gracen, it's okay. It's okay that you made a mistake. Mistakes are natural. It's a natural part of the human experience. You don't need to persecute yourself for making genuine mistakes. It's okay. It's okay to mess up. It's okay. Like, just breathe. You're fine. You know, you're doing amazing. Look at all the good that you've already done today, right? Like, it's catching things like that. And you wouldn't catch that. Actually, you would catch that mirrored back to you in your relationships if you choose not to self-isolate, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people will get into relationships to use the other person as a distraction, to start realizing what's going on inside of them instead of just taking the time to be alone and catching it by yourself. Which, you know, you can do either one, but honestly, it's best to just, you know, self-isolate, you know, choose to be celibate. Honestly, my best advice is just be celibate for a year. You know, get used to exploring on your own, you know, what you like, dislike sexually, the way you like to be spoken to, right? How you speak to others. Start becoming conscious of your own behaviors that you're doing out in public, right? How are you treating yourself? How are you presenting yourself to the world? How are you taking care of yourself at home? Do you have a religious self-care routine, right? Like, are you worshiping yourself? Are you telling yourself that you love yourself? Are you, you know, clearing your energy? Like, do you have good spiritual hygiene, right? Like, are you cutting cords? I mean, there's so much growth and expansion that comes with the isolation phase. And I feel like I'm starting to exit that isolation phase. I'm like, I'm entering this new phase of getting myself more out there and taking action and connecting more with people, because I have done so much work with myself and being alone and staying celibate for a few years and really getting my energy clear and clean. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly what, direction I'm like moving towards. I know exactly what I like to do. I know exactly what lights me up. I know that if I go book a vacation, I know that it's going to nourish me on the deepest levels of myself, because I'm doing everything that lights up my inner child, my inner teenager, my adult self, right? Like, it's just such a multi-dimensional experience, and it just nourishes me on all the levels, right? Like, anyway, moving forward. Also, yeah, we talked about the no support. So just one example I want to throw in there really quick is, this totally sucks. I just went through this. When you get sick, because you will, your body is going to purge energetically and physically. I feel like I went through both. I went through like a physical and an energetic purge like a couple weeks ago. It was so intense and it sucked. I was basically on my own. And no family member wanted to help me and get me anything I needed. And the only thing I would say that one of my family members did for me was they got me zinc lozenges. But other than that, like, there was no like support. There was no, hey, if you need juice or if you need this, let me know, or I'm gonna go get you this and here's this, like this natural empathy. Okay, there was none of that around me. Nowhere. And so the best thing that you can do is prepare yourself, because you know that you're going to get sick. So make sure you have things. This helps to deepen and develop your self-reliance even more. So, stock on things like elderberry gummies, stock on essential oils, and get yourself a little diffuser. Get a hot towel warmer from Amazon. Make yourself hot towels for your throat and your sinuses. Get some rosehip oil to massage on your face, to do self-massage, to clear your sinus channels, to help you breathe easier, right? Like, do certain things. Buy cough drops. And I want to say this really quick. Be careful what cough drops you do buy, because some of them have petroleum derivatives like Red 40, Blue 1, Yellow 5, like all the horrible stuff that they put in there. So go to like a healthy grocery store and make sure you're reading your ingredients on your cough drop packages. Get tissue boxes. So that way, when you do start to feel day one of like, oh snap, like I'm getting a fever, it's getting worse, it's developing really quickly, and you go home, you have all of your stuff right there. You have it all right there. You don't have to go shopping. And if you don't have any food at home, you can just run, by the grocery store, get yourself some soup for like the next couple of days, juice for the next couple of days, water for the next couple of days, and then boom, you're good. So that way when you like start to come out of being sick, like you have stuff at home to carry yourself through feeling like shit, right? And hopefully you have some kind of friend support system, thank God, for one of my best friends, because she's awesome. She is like the only person who is like, oh my gosh, I will bring you organic juice and this, that, and the third. But yeah, she's like the only one in my life who is like that, and it's really fucking sad. And so anyway, make sure you've got your own back, like prepare for the worst, right? And then you will be fine. Okay, the next thing I want to go into with exiting the dysfunctional family system is, this one really just grinds my gears. Information being gatekept. Oh my God. When I literally taught myself how to invest in cryptocurrency and how to basically make my money start working for me, on a small level, I wouldn't say I'm a huge financial guru, but I'm smart enough to know the basics of where I'm supposed to put my money, right? Like I know how to diversify my money and where it's safe to go and just the basics, right? I remember I emailed my grandfather like years ago. I think it was like 2 years ago. I actually talked about this before, but just to kind of reiterate, he is a medical malpractice attorney. So he makes a pretty good salary. He's still practicing to this day. And one of the things that you do when you make a lot of money is you want to invest it, right? Like you want to put it somewhere where you're going to make more money. Your money is going to work for you. This man, okay, he was a Capricorn, so he knew how to make his money work for him. But he gatekept so much information. And one of those things that he gatekept was a Roth IRA. Basically what that is, it's a retirement account that is tax-free when you pull it out at retirement age. So you don't have to pay taxes on it. You don't have to pay any capital gains or weird shit on it. It's you just keep investing into this retirement account your whole life, and then you can withdraw it tax-free at, I think it's $59.50 for the Roth IRA. And that's not including your Social Security that you get to withdraw. And so anyway, he knew and had a Roth IRA account the entire time me and my twin sister have been alive, okay? Because Roths, I think they started in 84 or 1990, something like that, and I was born in 96, so he was well aware of them, right? He knew about them and what they did and the benefits of them. That man never shared that information with me and my twin sister, and it wasn't until just a few years ago that I became aware of what a Roth IRA was, and I actually learned about it through educating myself, through Barnes & Noble, through podcasts, and taking that self-isolation period, right? I skimmed through books in the bookstore on investing, and I met a guy who came into my restaurant job and literally taught me step by step on what exactly I needed to do on my Fidelity account and what to invest in, how often to invest into it, what not to invest in. Literally, I called him in and I was like, oh my gosh. It just made me so angry. It makes me so... I wouldn't say I'm angry anymore because I've already refigured out all this stuff on my own. But at the time, it made me super angry. But now it just annoys me and frustrates me, looking back on how different my life would look had he given us access to that information a long time ago. I got my very first job at 16 years old, and he could have told me, hey, Gracen, just so you know, you're not responsible for paying bills right now, but something that'll help set up a financial future for you for generational wealth so that you don't have to struggle is save $500 a month for your Roth IRA, and then when you turn 18, open it and put that money in there so it can grow tax-free. And you can retire with a decent amount of money and not have to struggle financially when you're old, right? He could have easily said that. But you know what he said to me and my twin sister instead? Me and your grandmother have scars from our past, and, that's just a part of life. It's a part of life to struggle. He literally was telling us in so many words that he wanted to see me and my twin sister struggle. He wanted to see us suffer because he suffered. He is the kind of soul that said, I got hurt so bad that I want to see other people hurt and suffer and struggle just like I did. I don't want to see people win, right? And then there's souls like me, and hopefully like you who's listening, who go through that same trauma. They go through the same amount of abuse, and they go, you know what? That was so screwed up and so fucked up and so distorted that nobody else should have to go through that and experience that and procreate and teach their kids that same behavior and same cycles of trauma. Nobody else should have to go through that, right? So it's I feel like there's two different souls. The ones that actually are empathetic, the ones that care and want to see people win and do better and heal and want to grow. And then there's the stagnant souls, the ones that are so severely hurt. I call them the weak souls because that's just the facts. They're just so weak from all the trauma that they chose to incarnate and go through and experience. And they're so weak that after all of that, after everything has been said and done, they're like, you know what? I went through this, so screw you, and I hope you suffer. I hope you're miserable, blah, blah, right? Because they're in so much pain. They're so weak from being in so much pain that they haven't gotten out of that hole of, they haven't dug themselves out of their own hole, right? They need more assistance. They need deeper assistance. They need deeper soul searching within. And that's just what it takes for those kinds of souls. And hopefully for the people that are listening to this podcast, like, you guys can touch those souls and be like, hey, I understand you, but it doesn't have to be this way. You don't have to be that way. You can make a different choice. And you know what? If you don't want to make a different choice and you want to choose to be miserable and you want to choose to be stagnant and you want to choose to consciously suck as a person, I mean, that's a major you problem, right? Like, those people are literally going to die off eventually. Like, this planet, as a collective consciousness, like through natural evolution, like those people who are refusing to change and refusing to grow and they're choosing to suffer, like eventually those bloodlines are going to die out. They're not going to make it, because the direction of consciousness that we're headed towards and that we're in at the moment is expansion. It's unity, is coming together. It's learning to come together and literally like that massive scale of experiencing discomfort and navigating through conflict and then coming out and compromising, right? Like, so you know what I'm saying? It's like, just choose to be better. Choose to be uncomfortable what's the phrase my spirit guides use? Choose to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's what it's going to take. And listen, trust me, I know, it sucks. It sucks because you've just gone through so much uncomfortable stuff your whole life that you're just like, God, I don't want to keep going through it, right? Like, I'm trying to get away from that, but it's actually like uncomfortable change that's good, right? Like, it's not like so intense and so severely toxic. It's like high vibrational change. It's like high vibrational discomfort, right? So it's just different. And so when so much information is gatekept from us from growing up in these dysfunctional family systems, it really makes us feel like we're really held back in life, like we're super behind, and we start comparing ourselves to other souls' journeys, and we're like, man, this 19-year-old guy is out here buying McLarens and having his own drop shipping business, and he's already set for his 20s. He hasn't even made it in his 20s yet, and that dude's like already a millionaire. Like, that dude can already buy himself a house. He can already just get up and go rent a private jet and go on vacation to the Maldives whenever he wants, right? And then you're over here like, damn, like, if I had access to the same information he had access to at his age, right? Like, you just get into this comparative mode, and you can't do that to yourself. You cannot do that to yourself, because your soul, your journey, you have your own unique contracts, your own life sequence of events for a reason. You're experiencing what you're experiencing right now at your age, at your point in this journey, for a reason, okay? And then it all makes sense later on. You're like, and then later on, like 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I totally understand why I could not be where I wanted to be at that age. I know exactly why. And I look back and I think to myself, if I was 18 and spiritually awake with everything I have access to in the non-physical, it would literally, like, my life course would look so different than what it is today. And I feel like it would just be impossible to be like that tapped in, that awake, that conscious, that attuned with my gifts, because there was no environment and there was nobody, like no people around me to support that. It didn't exist, which is why I had to choose to make uncomfortable change, to leave my hometown, and I made a drastic decision and moved out of state, right, across the country where I'd never been before. Actually, I visited Utah once, but I didn't live here before, right? Like, I didn't know the culture. I didn't know, like, how people were here. I didn't know what kind of food was here. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. And I said, I'm just going to move here, and I'm just going to wing it. Saturn and Aries, right? Like, I'm just gonna wing it and see how this works out. And so it actually ended up working out amazingly, and it was, like, one of the best decisions I've ever made. And, yeah, like, making that uncomfortable change of immersing myself into an entirely different state, an entirely different culture, right? Like, working in a restaurant in a lower position than what I'm used to working in. And I say lower as like a position with like not as much responsibility, right? Like, I used to do lots of managing, being in charge, all that stuff. And it's just so much responsibility. It's just too much. It's too much energy to deal with while I'm trying to do my psychic stuff. And so I thought, like, okay, like, I'm just going to, like, be a server. I'm just going to be a server and have my freedom to just go home and disconnect, right? Like, because if I'm managing and, like, taking on more responsibility, that takes more of my time, and that's less time I have to share with you guys. And anyways, yeah. So there were different sacrifices that I had to make in order to be where I'm at today. And so don't be afraid of that. Don't be afraid of, doing that uncomfortable change, because you never know what your life could look like. You never know what could come from that. You never know what kind of people you're going to meet. Like, I did not know I was going to meet the people I was going to meet that I know today. And had I known that, like, honestly, I don't know. Honestly, if I knew the people I was going to meet today, I feel like I would have expedited that. I would have been like, okay, I'm going to go work here because I know exactly who I'm going to meet, right? Like, I would have expedited that process. But you know what? It's actually better that it unfolded organically and, right, like jumping into the unknown. Like, and that's how these relationships form and how these experiences form, is through the unknown. And that is something you're going to have to get used to. I mean, I'm still getting used to that, right? Like, especially with my career. I'm just winging it, right? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying new things. And, you know, different kinds of people reach out to me and different people show up in my reality. And I'm like, this is so cool. Like, this is so unknown. Like, I didn't know I was going to run into this person at the grocery store. I didn't know I was going to run into this person at a restaurant. Like, I didn't know this was going to unfold this way. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, it's pretty badass, you know? It's kind of fun. Like, it's kind of like a game. Anyway, let's move forward. So, the emotional and the psychological abuse aftermath of exiting the family system. I'm going to talk about something really personal, which is there was a lot of emotional abuse in my childhood, and unfortunately, as a result of that emotional abuse, because there was triangulation that went on, there was like this competition and like this this against energy. I don't even know the word right now. But basically, all of like my sisters, we were all against each other in some form, and we were supposed to team up with one sibling or the mom, and then go against this sibling, and then, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just so toxic, so dysfunctional. And because of that emotional abuse, it actually destroys relationships. It actually destroys authentic relationships with your siblings. And even though you like grew up playing with them and you grew up connecting with them, like, all of that abuse does end up taking a toll on that relationship, and it collapses, right? It collapses, and then both parties have to decide whether or not they want to choose to create a new relationship moving forward. And unfortunately, when one of the souls, one of the people that escapes the narcissistic cult system, they break out the system, they go, holy shit, like, this is so dysfunctional, so toxic, like, I can't be a part of this anymore. When that person breaks out, the other siblings who are still a part of that cult system, they're still keeping that system alive because they don't feel safe breaking out of it. Because, right, they don't want to leave their familiar. They feel safe in that familiar. And so what ends up happening is they go against you to defend the system. How dare you say that about your grandparents? They're your only grandparents alive. How dare you say that about your own father, right? Like, it's like this programming. Like, it's like this defense mechanism of defending the system. And it's really sad. And so you end up going through life, starting adulthood with no siblings, and they don't get to share those experiences with you. They lose that time with you, you know. Like, you don't get that time back. Once it's gone, it's gone. And you can only keep moving forward and keep moving on. And that's just currently the position that I'm in. It's like, you know, my siblings, they refuse to accept who I am authentically. They refuse to accept that I am a psychic. They refuse to accept this newer and truer version of this healthier version of me, because it's everything that they don't know. Like, they don't know that the real me, because the real me was extremely suppressed at the same time that theirs was, right? Like, anyway. And also the psychological abuse aftermath. You literally, growing up in a family like that where you're constantly gaslit and you observe super dysfunctional relationships that are inverted and that are, you observe like Oedipus complex or emotional enmeshment, right? Like, Oedipus complex, by the way, for those of y'all who don't know what that is, it's basically when, the best example I can give, it's like a mom being attracted to her son, okay? Because her son is emotionally enmeshed and providing all of the emotional labor for her, basically doing all the thinking and the feeling for her, because she ended up dating a unhealthy man, like an unhealthy male figure, right? And so she relies on her son, and then she becomes sexually attracted to her son because her son is providing her emotional needs, which she needs to be doing that herself, right? Like, it's just this whole thing. And so anyway, my mom did not have sons, just so y'all know, but my grandmother on my dad's side of the family I definitely feel like she had an Oedipus complex for sure. And the way you perceive relationships, the way you perceive souls, it becomes distorted. Like you have all of these distorted lenses, right? There's damage physically to your brain from being gaslit for so many years. So you got to do the energy healing on yourself for that. By the way, if you guys want to see a special video on that, go leave a comment on my YouTube channel on my next video, or you can comment on one that's already there. Go under my live tab and just like do like a little topic request for podcast. Be like, hey Gracen, can you please do a video on this, or maybe do a podcast conversation on this? And then I will take note of that, and maybe I'll channel for you guys and provide some additional information, wisdom on that. Yeah, but anyways, and the way you move through life, the way you move at work, the way you wake up and how you make choices, it's all through this distorted perception of reality, and it's from all of that psychological abuse. And unfortunately, when you have that abuse still in your energy and your soul, you're going to attract that in a partner until you heal that. So you're going to attract friendships, coworkers, bosses, intimate relationships who also have the same psychological abuse that you do, to mirror that back to you, because it's the universe showing you like, hey, this is going on inside of you, and this is why it's around you, this is why it's so close to you. So yeah, it's really important that you guys start doing energy healing on yourself, and going deep within, removing those psychological wounds, removing those layers of being gaslit, right? Going and healing your amygdala, your frontal lobe, your hypothalamus, like your brain, your limbic system. Okay, that stuff is super important. Oh yeah. And then you will like energetically start to notice what is dysfunctional and what isn't. Like your energy will just naturally tell you. This example is coming up. I feel like I've talked about this before. But it's okay. I'll bring this up really quick before we get into the last closing statement. Starting to lose my voice, which is usually my indicator that I've been talking long enough. So anyway, real quick. I was in this grocery store with my mom, grocery shopping, and the cashier was very narcissistic. She was going through like a really like hard time, but like she was just being a bitch. Like everything that she bagged in our grocery bags, like she was pushing it angrily at us. Like every time she put our kombucha in the thing, she would push it. Then it was our veggies, and then she'd push it at us. And it was like everything she put in the bag, she just was like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And I'm like, ew. And I could feel her energy. And so I said, well, no, I waited for her to finish bringing up all of our groceries. And then she changed her voice, like completely code switch. And she was like, oh, 113.67 or whatever she said. And I just looked at her, and I was getting this message, this download from Kali Ma, this ascended master, very intense feminine energy. And she was like, you need to hiss. You need to speak your boundaries. Like, you need to speak your truth right now in this present moment. Say something, you need to hiss. And I was like, okay. And so I looked at the cashier and I said, I speak your negative energy back to you, because it was crawling all over my arm, and it was just, it was gross. I hated it. She looks at me, she goes, what? I said, I speak your negative energy back to you. I said, I don't know what your problem is, but you're not going to take it out on me. And she was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm a psychic. I can feel your negative, ugly energy. It feels disgusting. I said, and I speak it back to you. I said, here, take it back. And I just like blew it back at her, right? Like I was like, took the energy off my arm and just flung it right back. And she just looks at me like, and she like made a smart ass comment. I can't remember what she said. And immediately it was like, Kali Ma stepped through me or something. And I said, ain't nobody told you to work this job, Emily. And she was so stunned. Like she didn't even speak. She just looked at me with her mouth just dropped like wide open. And she just walked away from the register. And I was like, let's go, bitch. Like, I will fight you, like, in this grocery store right here, right now. Like, I had so much adrenaline rushing through me. I'd never done that before in public, right? The whole grocery store was, like, silent. Like, all these people were standing in line. But, like, in that moment, it was, like, it was just me and her. Like, I didn't care about the people around me. Like, my mom was standing at the end of the cashier line. Like, finally you stick up for yourself. Like, finally you say something. Like, finally you speak your boundaries, So I was like super grateful for her support in that moment. And then it was funny because like everybody, it was like the bystander effect. It was like everybody who like saw her walk away, like the majority of them stared at her like, fuck you, bitch. Like, what did you say to her to make her act like that? Like, to make her respond like that? And this one guy, he starts laughing. He's like, haha, anyways. And I just gave him the nastiest look, like the darkest look ever of like, do not play with me. Do not play with me and your toxic energy, because you'll be the next one that I call out in front of everybody. And then anyway, so I just got my groceries and then I walked out the store and I was like, oh, that felt so good. That felt so good to hold members of society accountable for their narcissistic behavior. And I just wasn't tolerating it. I wasn't putting up with it. And it was just so empowering in that moment. And anyway, yeah, I'm going to move on from that because I feel like I could talk about that forever. And we've already reached an hour. So just real quick to wrap this up, starting adulthood as quote unquote the black sheep, it's going to feel very unfamiliar. It's going to feel very unknown. It's like re-experiencing the world as like your childlike self, except when you were like your childlike self before you got inundated with all your trauma, right? Like, do you remember that sensation, the feeling and the believing of like anything is possible, the world is so big, you were just so excited just to live life, you didn't know what was coming, you didn't care what was coming, you were like, I don't know, just be me, I'm just living my life, I'm just gonna paint, or I'm just gonna do this, I'm just gonna do that, right? It's like that energy, but like your adult self. So now you're self-reliant. You're not a kid anymore, but you get to reconnect with that unconditioned self, right? You get to reconnect with that inner child. So as an adult, being self-reliant, taking care of yourself, you get to be like, you know what? Since I'm off work today, I'm going to go paint, or I'm going to go read a book, or I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do whatever I want to fucking do. Like, if I want to go get a bottle of wine, I'm going to go get a bottle of wine, and I'm going to drink a glass of wine while I make some beef stew on the stove. Like, I'm going to blast my music in my apartment, and I don't care. I don't care if people are judging me and I'm dancing. I don't care if they see me. I don't care if they hear me singing. I don't care, right? Like, I don't care. And that's this energy that I highly advise you to adapt and to adopt, right? Like, stop caring so much about what other people think and what other people are projecting onto you, because that's their opinion. That's their distorted energy that they're projecting onto you. And that doesn't have to be your truth, okay? You don't have to accept that as your truth, right? Like, try to reprogram yourself as best as you can. Start with like a weekly basis or even a monthly basis, and, you know, go through life. And if you're like in your car blaring your music, playing the same song like 17 times, right? Like, and somebody next to you is sitting at the stoplight staring at you like, weirdo, get even weirder. Like, sing, like, I don't know, get louder, roll your windows down, like, if you haven't already done that. Like, I don't care. And tell yourself that. Say that out loud. Even look at them in the face and say, I don't care what you think about me. I'm going to do me. I love my life, and I'm going to keep doing me. I'm going to keep living my best life. So, you do you, boo, right? Like, just that attitude will get you so far in life. It will literally teach you to not give a fuck about what other people think and how they perceive you, because that's not your truth. How you perceive yourself is your truth, right? You know, do you love yourself? Do you love how authentic you are? Do you love how weird you are? Do you love how awkward you are, goofy you are? You know, do you love your laugh? Like, right? Like, learn to love you. Learn to love your own energy, your own uniqueness that you brought here. There's only one you, and there's so much power in that. Like, nobody else can copy your spirit. Nobody else can copy your authenticity, right? Like, there's nobody better than the original, okay? So just be you. Don't try to be like anybody else. Just be you. Reconnect back to you, all right? So, anyways, guys, I'm going to cut the conversation here. If you want to learn more about my own story, my own unique upbringing, if you desire to feel inspired, stay tuned for my first book. It is coming out very soon. It's going to be about overcoming adversity, family jealousy, and so much more. You guys get to really look through a window and basically watch, like through words, a movie of how my life started and what I went through and how I came over on the other side. And this energetic theme of like, there is no energy more powerful than you. Like, no matter what, you can always win. You can always win. You can always live your best life. You can always have the best relationship. You can always have the money. You can always have whatever it is that you truly want, right? Like, But that takes work. It takes unlearning. It takes reprogramming. It takes uncomfortable conversations. It takes change. But at the end of the day, right, like, there is nothing more powerful than you. And you guys can do anything that you put your mind to. So, all right, guys, with that being said, thank you so much for joining me today. If this really touched your soul, and you really feel like you want to give back to the show, please support my show. You can either Venmo me or support it through the I think it's Buzzsprout feed. I don't know what it's called. But the links are posted in the description below. And feel free to go stalk my YouTube channel, go learn how to heal yourself for all the new listeners and also the OG listeners who have been here since day one. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please go network with me on LinkedIn as well, and go follow me on TikTok for future videos. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time.